I'd first like to thank all of our friends and family who worked tirelessly to put this together. And we have, as listed in the program, we have some memories that have been sent in from family and friends that we'd like to share, and then there will be a period for inviting folks up to share stories. Hopefully someone has a couple of funny stories. I know I have a couple of funny stories. Our dear friend Sarah Mativier-Schott will be acting as our mistress of ceremonies today because she's much less terrified of public speaking than I am. So I guess we'll carry on with our program.
Good afternoon and welcome again, friends and family and friends who are like family. I'm Sarah, as Tim introduced me. I've been a friend of Tim and Tammy's for a really long time, and again, on behalf of Tim, I want to sincerely thank you for being here today so that all of us who loved Tammy can remember her together. Because that's the whole reason why we're here, right? To remember Tammy not by mourning her death, but by celebrating her beautiful life and the fact that we were all lucky enough to know her. And we know that Tammy was so full of light and joy, and she loved each and every one of us here so much that the last thing Tammy would want would be to see us fall into sorrow and despair. So let's celebrate our dear friend, wife, daughter, sister, cat mom, and so much more, Tammy. I also want to apologize in advance. There are several Japanese phrases, names, and place names that will appear today. And I've been coached in pronunciation, but I don't know if I'm a very good student or not. So apologies in advance if I mess anything up. Tamy Nora Reyna was born August 7th, 1960 in Yokohama, Japan. Her mother, Temiko, was a Japanese national, and her father, Ed, was a U.S. serviceman. She grew up on the Navy base in Yokosuka with her three siblings, Elia, Edward, and David. Tammy spent her entire childhood in Japan, in contrast to most of her friends from the base who had to move every few years. This led her to become an honorary nechan, that's informal Japanese for big sister, a friend and guide for new classmates trying to find their way. Tammy attended Niles C. Kinnick High School, also known as Yo-Hi. We're going to hear from a bunch of Yo-Hi-oans who are here. She was an athlete in cheerleading, basketball, and gymnastics, a writer. One of her poems is actually in the program inside the front cover, and a photographer. Remember that part, that's gonna figure in big later. After graduating from Yo-Hi in 1978, Tammy attended the University of San Diego and then moved to Houston. After years working at the Houston Post newspaper, she became an accountant with ENSR Consulting and Engineering, where in 1988 she met Tim. They were married on November 20th, 1993. Several years later, Tammy left the corporate world to start an online jewelry business, and several years after that, she discovered what would become her life's mission: volunteering with the marching band at Cypress Ridge High School, where she picked up her camera once more. From Yo-Hi cheerleader and nechan to beloved photographer of the Cy Ridge High School band, wherever she went, Tammy's gift was creating community. We can see this through the words of friends and family members who knew her best and who have sent these memories for me to share with you today. Let's begin at the beginning with a message from Naomi, one of Tammy's oldest friends. My name is Naomi Brown, and I'm proud to say that Tammy and I have been best friends since we were 12 years old. Tammy and I both grew up in Japan to interracial parents. Our mothers were native Japanese, and our fathers were American. We were born only 7 weeks apart, graduated from high school in the same year, and both came to the United States at age 18. Amazingly, Tammy was also my next door neighbor in the dorms at the University of San Diego, and we have been inseparable ever since. Although she moved to Texas and I remained in California, our friendship evolved into a sisterhood, an unbreakable and deepening bond through the decades. We understood and loved each other's souls. We always talked about all things Japanese, especially the food, the culture, the customs we missed, and our Japanese mothers. We spoke Janglish, which is our language, a mix of Japanese and English. What I will forever cherish about Tammy is her endless capacity to love, her fierce loyalty, and her funny goofiness that always made me laugh. She was so caring and concerned about others. I imagine that anyone who had the good fortune of knowing her would fall in love with her character, her personality, her intelligence, and sage insights about life and humanity. She had a rare balance of deep wisdom and lighthearted humor. She was so beautiful, inside and out. There is a Japanese word, aishiteru, which means I love you in Japanese. We always said this when we had to say goodbye, every time. Aishiteru, Tammy. Rest in peace. Another yohai friend of Tammy's, Michael Weddington, who is an author and historian, offers this analysis of Tammy's character using a historian's approach. Michael writes, "Our society, as we're all aware, is extremely polarized right now, and callous disregard for others feels commonplace. In response, it's easy to lose faith in each other and in humanity in general. But Tammy wasn't one to give in to fear, distrust, cynicism, or hate. In reviewing well over a decade of her posts online, it became clear just how tirelessly she reached out to others with messages of love, support, hope, humor, reverence, and reconciliation. I came to the realization that Tammy was a remarkable peacemaker." So, what exactly is a peacemaker? A peacemaker is someone who is committed to help resolve conflicts between others through dialogue, compassion, empathy, and justice. Wherever they are, peacemakers are driven to bring about or restore harmony with kindness and love. They are the ones who reflexively ask others to remember our common humanity, to see the good in others, to talk things out. They're not afraid to stand by their principles, but neither do they allow their personal feelings to override their desire to help bring about peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for we need them now more than ever. Tammy exemplified the qualities that I've observed in many U.S. military dependents living abroad: tolerance, friendliness, resilience, openness to new places and ideas, empathy, and a purposeful desire to contribute to something greater than our individual selves. Tammy, You personally exuded these qualities faithfully and beautifully, and in honor of your life, love, and service, I humbly bestow upon you and your memory one of your favorite Japanese phrases. Otsukare sama deshita, loosely translated, thank you for all you have done during your life. Well done. Michael's words illustrate how Tamy created community by facilitating harmony between people. But she also created community literally by bringing years of Yohai alumni together. Another Yohai friend, Chip Adair, is here, and I would like to invite him to share some memories with us right now.
All right, guys, I'm gonna try to get through this. I knew Tamy long. Sorry. I did this when I was writing it too. I knew Tamy a long time before she ever knew who I was. I was an 8th grade cheerleader. I was an 8th grade cheerleader. I was an 8th grade geek, and she was a senior cheerleader. Of course, we all knew her. She didn't know me at that point, but fast forward to sometime in the late 90s, I stumbled upon a Yohai group online. I joined the group chat of probably 10 to 15 people, all talking about the days back in Japan. I got excited. I knew I found my tribe. I was so excited, and I could type faster than most of those people could because I'd been in IT for long enough that I was typing 100 words a minute. I wasn't letting anybody get a word in edgewise. I was so excited. I mentioned that I was in Houston, and I just kept typing. Found out later that Tamy was sitting at her keyboards trying to say, I'm in Houston. Hey, Chip, I'm in Houston. I'm in Houston. And then in all caps, I'm in Houston. So I realized I got a friend in Houston. At that point, we started making plans for a mini reunion. Mr. LaMonica over here, which was our freshman biology teacher in Japan, imagine that. We had several other people that are in the Houston area or around Austin, San Antonio, and we got together at Tim and Tammy's house for New Year's, amongst all kinds of friends and relatives, but quite a few of us Yohaians showed up there, and I was in my heyday. It was amazing. I actually brought my kids, who in turn fell in love with Tamy, and you'll see some of those pictures on the website where my kids are crawling all over on a couch. I'm sorry. Since that time, we've gone to Vegas reunions together. We've gone to Seguin to a reunion with Rocky, another Yohai brother that was lost too soon, and many New Year's parties. Tamy meant the world to me, not just because, well, she's Tamy, y'all know that. She brought together the Yohai family years after most of us had lost touch. Because she introduced me to my best friend, Tim, she was selfless. She always went out of her way to help those that she loved and some that she didn't. And she loved us all. Tamy, we love you. Rest well. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Chip. At this time, Tim has another Yohai reunion memory that he'd like to share.
when we first got together, most of the Yohians had moved back to the States and gone their separate ways and had largely fallen out of touch. And in the first few years we were together, Tammy would occasionally get out her high school yearbooks and flip through them and tell me stories about this person or that person, and all the insane and sometimes illegal things that happened at Yohi. And she felt like that was a large part of her life that had just been amputated, that all of her Yohi family was missing. After a few years, one year we got a particularly big tax refund, and we're discussing what we should do with it. I said, you know, I'd really like to get a wireless internet for the house, and we could get a laptop so we can have a computer downstairs. She, in her usual serious, no-nonsense way, said, well, if that's what you want to do, I guess we can do that. So I did. Got the house wired up, got a laptop, brought it down, told her, okay, I got everything hooked up, I want to show it to you. And I showed her, here's the laptop, this is a web browser, and I've got a couple of shortcuts here for you. One of them is to a site called overseasbrats.com, which is, to those who don't know, it's a place where service brats worldwide can connect and find people that they knew. And the other one was a site run by an older Yohian named Jim Hyatt, who had a roster of every single graduating class from 1950 forward and contact information for everyone that he knew. I gave her the laptop. I didn't see her for 2 months. All I saw was the back of the laptop in her chair. She'd pop up occasionally and say, oh, I found these people. I found this guy. And she got reconnected to her Yohi family. And then that did progress to the Yahoo chat groups that met every Friday night. They'd start at like 8 o'clock our time, and it was rare that they would hang up before 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's how we met Chip. So that would be my Yohi, well, one of my Yohi stories. I have some others that aren't quite fit for sharing.
So as Tim just said, the Yohi community was central to Tammy's life. And in later years, the Cyridge Band became another community she helped to create that grew very close to her heart. Tammy and Tim started volunteering with the band while their niece and nephews were playing. But after Rhiann, Ryan, and Ross graduated, Tim and Tammy stuck around for another decade plus. Before long, Tammy became the official, unofficial band photographer. Tammy's friend Michael Weddington writes, volunteering with the band became a full-time job. A typical school year included shooting and editing games, marching competitions, winter guard competitions, concerts, and preparing photo collages for every graduating senior. Tammy took and carefully curated thousands of photos while acting as a witness and commemorator of the band community through time. Her delight in her job was infectious. Every shutter click and smile filled with joy. In addition to taking pictures, she spent a lot of time just listening to the band kids. She believed in the potential and light within every child she photographed and met, including the shy and hidden ones. This resulted in lifelong bonding with a medium-sized bunch of folks, some of whom are here today to play a couple of pieces for you closer to the end of the program. Although she was a talented photographer, the camera was only a vehicle for Tammy to fulfill her true purpose, to serve as an auntie and guardian angel for a generation of young people. So clearly, we've seen that Tamy built community wherever she went, among Yohai alumni, the band, and pretty much anybody she ever met. Through her compassionate nature, her desire to build bridges of understanding, and her need to truly see and hear others, particularly young people. Tamy's brother, Ed Reyna, describes the effect she had in their family. We find it hard to express in words what Tamy means to us. One of two awesome daughters to mom and dad, an awesome partner to Tim, one of our awesome sisters, one of our awesome aunts, an awesome friend. Suffice it to say, she was awesome. Tamy was a rock, solid, strong, immovable, secure, one of a kind. But she was also one of the best listeners anyone could meet, always hearing what we say, always without judgment, always transparent, always sincere. Our son Edward and his wife Airi remember how Aunt Tamy never failed to greet us with a big hug and a big smile, always cheery, always smiling, always a big strong hug. Always Tamy. Our son Steve fondly recalls the smoke breaks he had with Aunt Tamy when he was in his teens. Grandma and Grandpa didn't allow smoking in the house, so when Aunt Tamy needed a smoke, she had to go outside on the patio or lawn, and Steve would follow. They would sit on Mom and Dad's lawn and talk about anything and everything that came to mind. The talks were fun, serious, educational, inspiring, honest. Steve says, "Thank you for always being there for me. One day, we will meet again to have another smoke break. Love and miss you." Because you see, it wasn't the tourist sites we visited when Tamy was in town. It wasn't the events that we attended. It wasn't the shopping sprees or restaurants or ice cream parlors we all went to. It's these little 10, 20-minute talks with Aunt Tamy in Grandma and Grandpa's lawn, the exchange of words and laughter, Aunt Tamy's big hugs and big smiles that we hold dear and cherish. This is all only a small example of how Tams touched our hearts. Tamy being Tamy. We're not only glad our sons were able to meet our sister, their Aunt Tamy. We're so glad that they were able to share that time and space with her. Tams, Aunt Tamy, thank you so much. You will always be in our hearts. Tammy's younger brother, David Reyna, agrees and adds even more to the story. "My name is David. I'm the youngest of us 4 siblings. I want to start off by saying that I am very lucky to have been one of Tammy's siblings. She meant so much to me and to all of us. If I were to describe Tamy in a few words, they would be loving, caring, thoughtful, a great sister and friend. She always had time to talk and time to listen. And boy, was she a great listener. One of my earliest memories of Tamy is when she and Elia would babysit me. They would take me everywhere, dragging me along with them and letting me do whatever I wanted to do, probably because they were too busy having fun with their friends. But Tamy and Elia were always protective of me, and somehow, even at a young age, I knew I had nothing to worry about. Another memory I have was of a fight she had with Elia. Tamy must have been around 15 at the time. I would have been about 5 years old. I don't remember what they were arguing about, but I do remember this. After Elia stormed out of the room, Tamy came over to me and said, "David, come up to Elia and do this." That's how I learned what the middle finger was. Tammy loved Japan. She loved visiting temples and shrines, and we visited many together. Every time I see one, I picture Tammy smiling with camera in hand. She smiled a lot, and that is how I will remember her. I will cherish these memories for the rest of my life. I only wish we could have made more. You were a great sister to me. On behalf of our family, we love you, we miss you, and we will carry you with us always. The communities Tammy created and loved were not only made up of humans. She also served a community of animals, many of whom became part of her family too. For years, she and Tim cared for a colony of neighborhood cats, making sure they had not only food, water, and shelter, but also spaying, neutering, vaccinations, and veterinary care. Her friend Barbara Deputy, who adopted 2 of the colony kittens, remembers her as a cat mom. Tammy was a hero. Everyone who was lucky enough to have her in their life felt her quiet power. Family, friends, kids, and even her feline family. She sensed a need and went about making it a reality, making sure each of us felt her light was shining only on them. Everything she touched had magic. Her cats must have thought they found heaven when they wandered into Tim and Tammy's backyard. The universal cat distribution system knew just where to send them. Tammy helped generations of kittens find their forever homes with friends and family, and at her house, where they lived the deluxe life. I call her a hero, but she was so much more. A loving wife, daughter, friend, caregiver. I will never forget her. She was a hero, and her superpower was love. I personally remember visiting Tim and Tammy several years ago. At that time, Tammy was spending a lot of time playing a social media game called Foo Pets. This was an online environment where players could adopt virtual cats or dogs who then needed to be cared for, fed, groomed, walked, just like a pet in real life. Now, to be clear, there were no actual animals involved in this game. There were just very cute cartoon characters on a screen. But eventually, it was a game, and people would tire of it and abandon their pets. Tammy adopted these virtual pets, quite a few of these abandoned pets, and spent quite a lot of time caring for them. My point in telling this story isn't to make light of this as some silly quirk of hers. On the contrary, although this might seem like a trivial story to me, it's the perfect illustration of a vitally important truth. This woman's heart was so big, her capacity for compassion so great, that she couldn't bear to see anyone or anything suffer if she could do something about it, even an imaginary cartoon. Tammy's love for people, animals, even fictional ones, was utterly boundless. That's who she was. I'd like to conclude with a wonderful story from Tammy's sister-in-law, Tomoko, who shares this mystical experience. On the island of Enoshima, the island that Tammy loved, there is a special rock that she called My Rock. You can see her on the front of the program. There she is, sitting on her rock by the ocean. Tomoko says, Tammy had taken me to it once before. After she passed away, Ed and I went to look for that rock. Of course, there are many similar-looking rocks around, and we had a hard time identifying the right one. Just when we began to think that we might never find it, a cat appeared and stopped in front of us. The cat looked up at us for a while, and then she started walking. At first, we just thought the cat was cute, so we followed her. But soon, we realized that she was leading us back the way we came. It was just like the cat was telling us that we were looking in the wrong place. I wonder if that cat was conveying a message from Tammy. Tammy was a loving beacon of compassion to everyone she encountered. She was humble, kind, and funny. She loved her cats, and when she felt passionate about some cause or thing, you knew about it. She wasn't perfect, but every day she tried to transcend negativity by embodying the golden rule. Tammy's life was a daily example to try to remain your highest self in the face of life's many unrelenting challenges. Tammy, we love you. We remember you. We celebrate you. A life well lived, a life well loved. At this time, we'd like to invite any of you who have memories that you'd like to share to come up to the mic and tell us a story or two. Since we want to give everybody who wants to a chance to speak, we just ask that you try to keep your words to 2 or 3 minutes. Would anybody like to speak? Please.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Ray. Most of you probably know me as Chelsea. I was in Cyrus Band from 2014 to 2018, and then stuck around a few years when my brother Nathan was part of the band and graduated in 2021. When I got to high school, I was one of those loners. I didn't have a lot of friends, and honestly, I preferred talking to adults over anyone my age. I still do, but like Tammy started being that constant of like when I didn't know how my day was going or I didn't know what was going to happen that day, and I was going through battles I didn't even know that I was going through at the time. She was always that smiling face and ear to listen, no matter whether it was ranting about something stupid that happened in pre-cal or just talking person to person, heart to heart. She was always there. So when I graduated 2018, in 2020, she was looking for photo awards judges, and obviously they did not get to have a banquet that year. And I was like, oh yeah, so like I get time to look at fun pictures of people half I know, half I don't, and just get to like let these kids have their final like awards, and even though they couldn't have a banquet, because I know that was a big part of mine. And she was on it. She had everything ready for us and that we needed to. Had more pictures than we could even think to come through. But that just showed how committed she was to the band, even years and years and years after she had no actual kids in the band. But we were her kids. And she was our mom, aunt, whatever you want to call her. So I'm glad that we can be here to honor her, and I'm glad that a lot of us get to pick up our instruments for the first time in a while to honor her. So just always remember, she was always there for us, and now we just need to make sure we let her live on as much as we can. So thank you.
All right. All righty. Hello, hello. Welcome. My name is Patrick and Biet, and I am a graduate of the band, and I have some words to share about Miss Tammy. She was just absolutely such a sweet lady. She is very caring. She takes such phenomenal pictures. If you look at the Facebook page of the old pictures years ago, her pictures are just absolutely spotless, phenomenal, and they just look so beautiful, and they're probably one of the best pictures I've ever seen, which I will always miss her pictures, and I like how she bends down and takes pictures as she goes all the way to the top at the Cyrus stage to take some photos, and I will truly miss her doing that. And when we play later, I will definitely picture her being around taking pictures and her being up on the top of the stage up high taking some pictures, as she takes very good pictures up there. And I enjoyed that she was such a good friend. She was very caring and kind, and I loved how she continued to support the band and continue being a photographer. Thank you all, and we love you, Miss Tammy, and we hope that you continue, and we love you so much.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to share a memory of Tammy? Okay, great.
Hello, everyone. I am from the 2012 graduating class from the band, so that's been a little bit. Around 2009, 2010, Tim and Tammy adopted me and my two best friends, Johnny and Lon, and called us their kids, basically. And I called him Dad, I called her Mom, and they called me number one son, basically. So Johnny and Lon, if this is how you're figuring out that I was the favorite, I'm not sorry. But I did ask Tim recently why he chose the three of us to adopt, and he responded and basically said, "You cannot expect me to remember something that happened like 15 years ago." Which, that's fair. But then he did start telling me some stories about how much impact she had, talking about, you know, the pharmacist and the servers and everyone she impacted and had, you know, just a positive effect on. And, you know, when we first started doing the whole, like, I called her mom son thing, I didn't really know. Thought maybe it was just kind of like an endearing nickname, but over the years, like, it definitely turned into something that felt like very real. They used to take us out to IHOP after all of the marching band football games. And then she would tell us the stories about, you know, Japan, how much she loved it, all the mischievous stories she got up into, and then, you know, all the fun they had. And then after I graduated, we still would go out to eat sometimes, and for some reason it was always sushi. I don't know if that was a coincidence, but that kind of culminated in a few years ago when I finally got to go to Japan. And of course, for Tammy, that was exciting for her. So she actually, when I told her I was going, she was extremely excited for me, so much so that she even set things up for me to go meet David and Ed and Maggie in Japan. And when I landed, I got an email saying that she was actually, she said you were asleep actually, but she said that she was gonna watch my plane land and then go to bed. And then she had my Find My, so the whole time I was in Japan, she was just watching me, and anytime I was somewhere that she knew, I would get a little message, you know, go check this out. And I was like, okay, I'm being watched. But like, it was a pretty awesome experience though. And then they took David, Ed, and Maggie, they traveled quite a distance actually to spend the day with me and take me around. And that for me is definitely going to be like a priceless experience, and just, you know, infinite joy every time I think about it. And all because for some reason she just chose 3 random kids to adopt and call her son's number one son. But yeah, I was telling some friends about it recently when I was flying back for this, and I was telling them, if I get to leave this world having even a fraction of the impact that she had on everyone here, then I would call that, a life pretty well fulfilled, and hopefully make mom and dad proud. So, yeah, love you guys.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else who'd like to come and share some thoughts?
Hi everyone. I'll try not to break into tears. So, I always used to hate having photos taken of me, and I just remember the entire time through marching band making silly faces or whatnot, and every time she'd point the camera at me, doing something that would ruin the photo or otherwise make it look really weird, and you'd never want to look at those photos and frame them nowadays. But she'd always take them anyways, and in my senior collage, of course, it had some of those goofy photos, but she always managed to get some really quality photos. And ever since then, I've I guess she probably gave me a bug, because I noticed she was able to capture so many memories and make such a big impact, like everyone that is here knows. And I've sort of just fallen into taking a bunch of photos just like she does. Every time I go to an event, I'll take photos. I'll try and find the person who organized the event afterwards and be like, hey, I've got photos that I took at your event. Do you want them? And I didn't do that before, and it was definitely inspired by the drive that Tamy had to just make memories, make community, be a great person. So, she's great. We love her for that. So.
Please.
My name's Mike Ross. I first met Tamy about 50 years ago. But first and foremost, before I tell you my quick little story, I want to thank all the young people that came out today. Your presence here is just the ultimate respect for Tamy and her life and her life's work. I felt like, and I knew Tamy when I was in high school, and I felt like she lived her life like she was always in high school. So there's a reason that she connected so well with all of you. And again, your presence here is just the ultimate sign of respect, and she would love it and appreciate it, so thank you. Why am I up here? So, Tamy, you talked about how she could bring people together, how she could bring communities together. Well, I was a football player back when Mr. Ed Reyna was coaching the Yokohama Packers. I played for the Yokohama Rams, which was the team that was a little bit older than the others. And so I knew Tamy and Elia at a very young age, in the 8th grade. And when they talk about, they were my big sisters at the time. I was the same height I am now, much thinner. I think they called me Nopo-chan, which means skinny boy at the time. And but I knew them long before. And so one time after a football game, you're celebrating with your teammates. You just won. You guys see this, and you're congratulating the other team. And then you're kind of looking around for people, they're going to come up and talk to you afterwards, right? So I got my helmet off, and I'm sweating. I'm nasty. It was a muddy game. It rained a lot in Yokohama that time of year. And Tamy goes, hey, Nopo-chan, skinny boy. Come here. I want you to meet somebody. And she brings this cute little girl, she was older than me. She brings her over, and she says, I want you to meet Mary. This is Mary Kaluza. I said, oh, nice to meet you. And I'll have you know that Mary Kaluza is now Mary Ross, and has been for the past 40-some years. And she's here today. And they were all cheerleaders together. And they talked about Tammy's rock on that one island. These two had two rocks looking over the Yokosuka harbor, and there were butts there, and I hope that most of them were cigarettes. But I can't say for sure. But nonetheless, Tammy brought Mary and I together many, many years ago, and we thank her for that. iStudio, Tammy, rest in peace.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. My name is Juan. I'm also a graduating class of SciRidge 2012 in the band, all 4 years. And anybody who knows me knows that I love being in front of the camera. So me and Tammy developed a connection really quickly out on the field and all the games. And then through that, you know, Tammy and Tim were always a presence there for all the years that I was there. It was wonderful. Tammy was so sweet, so kind, but also so full of delightful surprises. I remember years afterwards, she recounted how she would have to go take smoke breaks with our then band director, which we had no idea about because they were trying to keep it hidden from us. And then I did a play one time, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. I did a play one time where I was playing a Marine, like I'd gone off to war and come back as a veteran. And her note from me afterwards, she was like, it was so good, but you should have sworn a lot more curse words would have been appropriate. But she said it in a much more colorful way, of course, with her own examples. But ever since graduating, Tim and Tammy have done such an effort to come, to stay in touch, not only just that, but to come see me in the performances and the shows that I've done. And, you know, just thinking back to being in high school and what that means to have like the people around you and the adults around you to keep in contact and to create this kind of community is tremendously special. It's something, those moments that I'll carry with me absolutely forever. Most recent ones, which we got to go to the Mucky Duck and see the California Guitar Trio, which was such a treat. And they've just, the both of them have always been so kind and so special. I remember when I was in college, I studied abroad in Morocco for a semester, and amidst all of the, you know, new and crazy and everything is awesome, I remember I was just in a shop and I saw like a little figurine of like a little wooden cat, and I immediately thought of Tammy, and I thought how beautiful it is to so unapologetically like share your love and your passion for the things that you care about, so that other people remember you through the things that you love, and so it just reminds me to not be embarrassed or afraid to share the things that you love, because that's how people remember you. And the last thing that I want to share, going back to her being a photographer in band, was that if I'm not mistaken, she wouldn't edit any of them. Like she wouldn't put any filters or do any sort of like heavy coloring or anything like that. Her mission was just to go out there and to capture photos and moments of absolutely everybody and then make sure to upload them, which let me tell you now as like a working artist, getting photographers and videographers to upload stuff quickly is just like the worst nightmare. People don't tend to do it, but even then as a volunteer, Tammy was so committed. And so it's not about having the perfect shot. It's not about having the perfect look. It's just about capturing a moment and creating the community, and she absolutely did that. And I think that's why we're all here today. Thank you, Tim and Tammy, for everything, really.
Would anybody else like to share a memory? Oh, come on up, Ilya.
Hi. First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone that's in this room. My former band friends, too. And my family, friends, and Yale High friends, and everybody that loved Tammy. Thank you for coming. I am Elia. I'm Tammy's oldest sister. And recently, my daughter, Rianne, planted a milkweed plant. And I just wanted to share this because it was just such a beautiful thing. But when Tammy passed, Rianne and I were freaking out because we saw this monarch butterfly just fluttering in front of our window, and we both ran outside, and we were like, oh my gosh, that's Tammy. It has to be Tammy. And so that was just so beautiful to us, and we knew that she was there watching over us. And the second memory that I really want to share is kind of funny, and this has to do with Yohai. But my funniest memory was when one day, it was close to the end of the school year, and Mary Kaluza Ross and Renee Moore, who isn't here, she wasn't able to make it, and Tammy and I were out in the front. Well, Renee really wasn't, but Mary, Tammy, and I were sitting out front, and we were just talking and stuff, and all of a sudden, we see this kid open up the window, the bathroom window, mind you, and she goes, hey, what are y'all doing? But it was Renee. And so, you know, we were chit-chatting, yelling at each other up at the windows back and forth. But that was my favorite memory because I was with my three sisters, Renee, Mary, and Tammy. And they were my best friends. I love you, Tammy.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name is William. I'm also class of 2012. What's up, y'all? I don't like being the center of attention as all of my peers and classmates know. Sorry, Mr. A, also you. They say the only two certainties in life are taxes and death. But the only two certainties in my life from around 2010 to 2020 was Tammy and Tim commenting on every single one of my Facebook posts, no matter what. It would just be like, cool, thumbs up. And it's like, all right, you had to say that. There's a thumbs up option, but thank you for typing cool. And the other certainty was that Miss Tammy would find the way to take a picture of me making the craziest face for no reason in the stands at a football game that I don't remember doing. And I was like, is this how people see me? Even my mom was like, you know you can just be a normal person, right? And I was like, these are the ones she uploaded, it's not my fault. After high school, I would randomly call Miss Tammy every now and then. If I was like studying Japanese and I had a really good lesson, I would call her and be like, I learned how to say hello. Oh my God, it's so cool. And she's like, oh, how do you do it? And I'm like, damn. And she's like, it's okay, you'll get there. And, and then we would just talk about, like, I was really into like Japanese history because I was kind of going through a history thing, and she would just always commit. We'd talk for like an hour and a half or something about like good and bad parts and aspects of Japan, and then we just hang up and then not do it again for like another 8 months. And it's just like, where the hell did that come from? That's awesome. And I remember having all of these very specific moments with her, and then I thought that was just special to me. But I see everybody in here has a Miss Tammy special moment, and it's like, where do you find the time in a day to just do all of this stuff and care for all these virtual animals? Was she taking care of virtual pets while she was on the phone with me talking about Japan?
I think this was before
Okay. Thank God. It's just cool that we all have a Tammy moment that we all have in our heads, and it just seems like it's personal to you, but it's personal to everybody. And it's really cool. And we love you, Tammy.
We have time for a couple more stories.
Hello. My name is Nancy. I'm also class of 2012. After I graduated, I kind of just did my own thing. But thankfully I have a little sister who is a lot younger than me. But when I was in band, I was really close to Miss Tammy and the Reynas. I was friends with them and stuff, so I was around her a lot. She always took, like everybody else said, really ridiculous photos of me, but it's fine. But after I graduated, I kind of like lost touch with everybody outside of the yearly Facebook post of happy birthday, sending love and hugs. Then when my sister started high school, I decided I wanted to be involved because she was also in band, and Miss Tammy was always the first person to come and say hi to me. She would always come and hug me. She remembered everything about me, even things that I didn't remember, and it was really nice to reconnect with her again these last few years. My sister just recently graduated, so thankfully I saw her up until very recently. She always asked me the same things. How's your brother? How are you? How's your mom? Your sister's so great. It's a lie. But she was always really, really nice to me, and I appreciate her always taking the time to just remember everything and make you feel special with everything. Yeah, we're really gonna miss her.
Anyone else?
I may need your help. Told you, Tim, I can't do this. But I have to. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, my name is Sammy Gentile. I'm class of 2012 from Cyprus too. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm a childhood friend of Tammy's. Grew up with her. She was 5 years older. In fact, the whole family. You probably heard a common theme here so far, that she was part of everyone's life. I'm sure she marked everyone's life here with kindness, generosity. And a very big heart. She always gave so freely without ever asking anything in return.
Another common thing you probably heard is that she was a big sister to everybody. But to let you know, I was her favorite. Okay? So I thought. So even after Tim posted on Facebook to announce, and everyone posted, you know, their condolences, but everyone, almost every single person said, oh, she was like my big sis. And I think that everyone that were actual friends with her knew she was like a, well, you all know what Superman does, right? I mean, saves the world, always there at the right time. Well, she was a superwoman, or super sis. Keep in mind, growing up, I was, you know, pre-teens. She was already a teenager. She always found a time to be there when I needed support. Don't know how she did that, but she did. And think about this. I mean, for all of you in the room, you know, when you were a teenager, how many of you gave time to support a younger brat? Probably didn't do that, right? But she did. She was around us all the time. And I'm sure, you know, for Mr. Reyna to be coaching, you know, she was around a lot of us kids most of the time anyways. So something that I do want to kind of mention is when Tim mentioned about that Friday night chat, or same with Chip, that was my doing. That was my website. Think of this was back in like 1988, 89-ish maybe. We were on AOL dial-up. We didn't even have, some of us had wireless maybe, but we were all on dial-up. So I created this Java chat. You guys may not know what that is, but similar to this, what you're gonna see on YouTube. You know, you guys see the chat, you know, space there. And you guys know when someone popular is on there, people comment, and it just scrolls and scrolls. Well, that's what happened with this Java chat. In fact, you know, think of it this way. None of us had seen each other since we left Japan, all right? And people just kept logging on. And if you weren't paying attention, you've already missed it. And that's why Chip was saying, you know, the whole part about, you know, I'm in Houston part. Well, that would be up there for a second, and it would just keep scrolling. And and this was on New Year's Eve, the very first one we did. And there must have been, it was slow at first, and as people started logging on, you couldn't keep up at all. That's how exciting it was. But you would see Tammy in there all the time, trying to say something, you know? And obviously she knew everybody. So that's the history of that Friday night chat thing there. I'm gonna miss her a lot. Her laughs, big smiles, her wisdom, right? It's all common, right? You guys all heard that. Great listener. And when she spoke, she just knew exactly what to say. Though her time with us was far too short, I take comfort in knowing that the love Tammy gave us all doesn't end here. In every kind of act of kindness, every moment of selflessness, every smile shared, her impact is going to echo for a lifetime for all of us. So let's carry her spirit forward and give her a bigger reason to smile from above. And let's be a little bit more generous, more compassionate. And a little more like her. And don't forget to smile back at her every once in a while. We'll miss her. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Blake. I'm part of the class of 2013, not 2012. Ever since I started in band with Tammy, Miss Tammy was always just right there. Every time that we always had some piece to perform, especially in the stands, and I'm remembering too a particular concert where even in an auditorium, Miss Tammy was actually in the background sometimes, behind the French horns, just shooting away at the percussion section. I was in percussion, I was in the drum line, and right there, right in the middle of everything. But when I think of my memories with the band, with the high school band, of course I remember my friends, the pieces I played, the directors that led the band, but Miss Tammy was always part of that community. She's always part of my memory with the band. There's this one particular memory I wanted to share as I was sitting here and trying to rack my brain of what I could say. It was a particular concert where we were kind of saying goodbye to a band director of ours. Some of y'all might remember Mr. Zanchuk. I remember leading up to the symphonic band's performance that there was just a lot of love around Mr. Zanchuk. And as he was departing the school to go take a different job somewhere. So I remember playing a particular piece called Song for Lindsay that was still to this day the most emotional that I had ever been on a stage. Just listening to the melody of the French horns in that one particular piece. And I'm in the back, almost trying to hide my emotions, but I couldn't help but just these tears streaming down my face. And then there's Miss Tammy over the very French horns that I was trying to listen to, and I just make eye contact with the camera, and she just gets me right there. Right there. And even though it was like, oh, she got me, that's still one of my favorite photos. Just the raw emotion, just the vulnerability that was on that stage. And maybe I'll show some here in a few minutes when the band's about to come up. I only have 2 cymbal crashes, so we'll see how impactful those might be. But yeah, I like everybody else has said, Miss Tammy's definitely left such a grand legacy, such a fine example of the kind of person that I hope to be, just to be a kind of leader and the kind of member in a community and a part of a family. I just hope that I can, like other people have said, be a fraction of the person that Miss Tammy has shown such a fine example of how to be. So I thank her. I'm forever grateful for her, and yeah, we love you, Miss Tammy.
Thanks, Blake. That was actually a great lead-in to what is coming next. So thank you so much for that. Thank you very much to all of you who were brave enough to come up and share your memories and your stories. Every one of them were just wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. But at this time, the Cyridge Band is here to play a couple of songs that were very special to Tammy. So if you guys want to start setting up, I'll introduce and then join you. The first piece that the band is going to play today is called Eve. It was originally composed by Paul Richards for his band, the California Guitar Trio. Paul is a longtime friend of Tim and Tammy's, and he wrote Eve after the death of his mother as a loving tribute to her. When Tammy first heard the California Guitar Trio play Eve, she connected with it immediately, and it was a very emotional experience for her. And it has remained a deeply meaningful favorite for both Tammy and Tim. The second piece that the band is going to play is the traditional Scottish melody, Auld Lang Syne. It has become a Cyridge tradition for the band to play this arrangement of Auld Lang Syne at their spring concert as a farewell for the seniors who will soon be graduating. It's a song of remembrance of times past and of those no longer here who we love dearly. And it always affected Tammy very deeply to hear it on the concert. It was impossible for Tammy to get through the spring concert without a wad of Kleenex. Tim says there are probably still tear stains up on the catwalk of the theater.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. My name is Edith Salcedo. I am from the class of 2013. I'm one of the assistant band directors at Cypress Ridge High School. This is my 8th year, I think, 7th year now. Kind of sucks to say that because I feel a little older now. But I just kind of wanted to introduce right here that you see right now, you have a mix of current students as well as alums from all different types of classes, 2012 through 2021, current students. So it was a real treat to put this together in our rehearsal today. You know, alumni were able to hang quite well despite not having some of the chops that they, you know, had back in the day. But I just did want to share a couple words from my experience for Miss Tammy before we get started here. So I know Tim had asked for me to share a couple things. When I think of Miss Tammy, the first word that always comes to mind to me is kindness. Then after that, it's genuine, happy, understanding, and most of all, loving when I think of Miss Tammy. To know her was to have a bonus mom or a bonus aunt that you had no idea you had. She just was that to you, and she was ready to love you in all her ways. Every interaction that I had with Miss Tammy made me want to be a better person, just all around, and I'm so grateful to have had somebody like that in my corner. I was typically always in awe of Miss Tammy because I just could never understand, you know, she didn't care about where you came from, she didn't care what you looked like, she didn't care what battles you were facing, she didn't care about any of that stuff. She just was ready to just hug you and ask you how you were doing, and just she wanted to hear more about your life. You know, I'm very grateful to have had her, and I'm most grateful to Tim as well. When my dad passed away not too long ago, they were there. They were at the funeral. I didn't really expect them to be there, but they were, and they showed up with flowers and really just continued to remind me that they really cared about me, despite me not being blood relative or anything like that. It was very, very special. I'm always gonna miss having a chance to talk with Miss Tammy. I'd reach out to her, keep in touch, and we just talk about anything and everything under the sun. And you know, she would always never judge me for anything I would share. She would always be open and honest and give me her full advice. So thank you, Tim, and thank you, Tammy, for just being a part of my life and showing me what kindness is and what true love is when you're able to hug someone and let them know you care about them, despite whatever they may be or who they might be or anything like that. So that's a couple of words I wanted to share, but without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and play our first piece, Odd Lang Syne, for Miss Tammy, so we hope you guys enjoy it. My bad, Eve, we're gonna play Eve and then Old Scottish Melody in that order. Thank you.
Thank you. That does conclude our program for this afternoon, but there's still plenty of refreshments in the back. We invite you to please stay, have another drink, have a few more snacks, and visit with one another. Thank you again so much for coming.
Can I get a photo with the band before we all disband? Can I just get one group photo?
Thank you.
you.